Good night, Belizeans at home and abroad. This is the Belizean Affairs Show number 400. 400. My name is Leonard Brackett, and tonight I'll be your chairman for the program. And being Friday, we have some constitutional and legal matters that we'd like to deal with, in addition to other issues. I'll start off the program since I'm running a few minutes late by just bowing my head and saying a short prayer as we normally do, and then I'll do a short reading from the scriptures. Divine loving Father, as we come before thy presence once again, we pray that thou mayest hear our humble expression of gratitude first and foremost for the privilege of life that thou hast granted us and the opportunity that thou hast afforded us to be among our family members, friends, and loved ones. Please continue to bless our country of Belize, its people and leadership. Please bless this country of the United States, its people and leadership as well. And we pray that thou would have mercy upon the rest of humanity as well, loving Father, that thou would bless them, grant us peace, health, courage, wisdom, knowledge, understanding, endurance, perseverance. And loving Father, as we present this program tonight, may thou grant us a bit of fortitude to be able to speak truth to power if need be. We pray that thou mayest continue to bless those who are in need of food and clothes and shelter, those who are in harm's way, in hurricanes, in wars, in pestilence, in all manner of devastation on the face of this earth. Please have mercy upon us, we pray, loving Father, for rest his mercies in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you very much, and I'll just proceed to read the scripture verse here. Let me see what am I going to. I'll read from the book of Psalms, and I'll read Psalms number 95, starting at verse 1. It reads as follows: O come, let us sing unto the Lord. Let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before him, before his presence, with thanksgiving, and make a joyful noise unto him with psalms. For the Lord is a great God and a great King above all gods. In his hands are the deep places of the earth, the strength of the hills is his also. The sea is his, and he made it, and his hands formed the dry lands. That's our reading for tonight. Thank you very much for allowing us to indulge in that part of our program. Uh, I don't see any of our other panelists in the background so far, so I'll just proceed. Let me see. I need to go to just a second. Oh, I just need to. There we go. Okay. I'm just trying to find here my copy of the Belize Constitution, the electronic version of it, and as soon as I pull that up, I'll be proceeding further. I don't know what else is there. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, so I need to go part 10 of the Constitution of Belize. And let me see, part 10, and turn it sideways for a minute here. Yep, I got it. Okay. Now, I need to make it a little bit smaller so it can fit on the. Okay, a little bit more. Okay. Uh, as I said, I will be taking up part 10 of the Constitution of Belize tonight. As the first part of our program. And there's a specific reason, and I'll divulge or explain or preface the specific reason why is it that I'm leading off with this particular section of the Constitution or the part of the Constitution. It speaks about miscellaneous, and under miscellaneous items in the Constitution of Belize, there are specific categories or sections that deals with the behavior, attitude, and conduct of elected officials, appointed officials, and others. Most Belizeans, both at home and abroad, would happen to know that we are currently going through a series of issues that pertains to the honorousness of those whom we have elected to office to govern our country, and also some of those individuals whom these elected persons have appointed to various boards, commissions, etc. So as we get into the program, I hope people will grasp and get a flavor for what is it that I'm actually trying to intimate and or present tonight as one of our teachable moments in regards to matters of the Constitution, since quite a bit of our people are not familiar with our Constitution. It's not something that is taught in school. It's not something that most people become or deal with in their day-to-day survival efforts. And in most cases, only when there is a problem, then they go to seek advice from lawyers who they presume will be able to give them the advice if they can afford the price for that advice. So, as I said, Part 10 of our Constitution deals with miscellaneous issues or items. And under Part 10, we start with Section 121 of the Constitution and subsection 1, which reads as follows: the persons to whom this section applies shall conduct themselves in such a way as not to, as in the case of A, to place themselves in positions in which they have or could have a conflict of interest. I think that particular short sentence there may perk up the ears of some individuals, because we do know that there is an apparent massive amount of uh, conflict of interest prevailing right now in our country in regards to the leaders, as I intimated earlier, that we elect to office, whom we entrust with our governance powers, as well as many of those who these same leaders as friends of the leaders, appoint different individuals to certain boards only for those individuals who become appointed, instead of serving the interests of the board, those boards that they are put on, which by further clarification are supposed to be serving the interests of the people of Belize and not the interests of the Prime Minister as an individual per se. That is to say, the powers vested in the Prime Minister are not for his own use or personal gains or enrichment. And as regards to the BTL issue, which we'll discuss a little further on, we see that there's a massive conflict of interest there in regards to how they attempted to pull that deal off. Nevertheless, they got caught with their hands in the cookie jar, and people are rebelling and are up in arms. I don't blame them. If you hire somebody to do a job for you and that person is going to turn around and betray your trust, the access that you give them to your assets, they're going to turn around and misuse and abuse those assets as if they were their own property or personal assets. Then you, as the owner of those assets, have a right to throw a storm about it and be annoyed. But let me read on. I'll read. I just read paragraph A, and I'll repeat it just for context again. As a matter of fact, I'll read the whole part that I read before then because it's important for consistency and clarity. Section 121 of the Constitution of Belize, subsection 1 reads as follows. The persons to whom this section of the Constitution applies shall conduct themselves in such a way as not to place themselves in positions in which they have or could have a conflict of interest. Please remember that because we'll come back to that as we carry on this discussion. And that was paragraph A, as I said earlier. Paragraph B reads as follows. Or to compromise the fair exercise of their public or official functions and duties. In the case of where I'm going with this particular presentation tonight, we have massive failure in fiduciary responsibilities within the structure of our governance powers and compromised individuals who sit on these boards who are supposed to know their responsibility in the first place and to whom their allegiance really lie, and who have a fiduciary responsibility to the public, especially if that board that they're sitting on is a public board, is a board that deals with public affairs, issues that pertain to the governance of the country. I'll read paragraph C, which says, that is, to use their office for private gain. I'll read that one specifically again because it's very short, but it's at the heart of where we are actually going with tonight's program, as I said earlier. Paragraph C says, to use their office for private gain. Paragraph D goes on to say, to demean their office or positions. And paragraph E reads, to allow their integrity to be called into questions, or, as in the case of paragraph F, to endanger or diminish respect for or confidence in the integrity of the government. referring to the government of Belize. I would like to read subsection 2 in addition before gaining any or doing any further comment. Subsection 2 of this same section 121 reads as follows. This section applies to the Governor General. Please pay keen attention because it's very critical, very important that you, the general public, Belizean citizens, understand the level and the degree and to what extent this particular part of the Constitution is making demands on people in high places and high positions. As I'm going to read here under subsection 2, it even includes the Governor General, who holds the executive authority of Belize in trust and under whose seal or guidance that executive authority can be exercised or may be exercised, as the Constitution says, by other subordinate officers. When it says subordinate officers to Governor General, it means anybody in the executive functions of the country that is below that position. So, as a matter of fact, the way this particular section that I'm reading here, and I'm going to reread a little part of it that I just read over again for emphasis and further clarity or contextualization, okay? It is critical for people to understand these things in their own context, because that is what makes the difference in terms of how these things affect us on a day-to-day basis in our lives and livelihood. And sometimes we defer to the people of authority to do what they're supposed to do and commanded to do by the Constitution, as I'm reading here. The very Governor General at the highest level of that executive authority, other than the head of state himself, is tasked with the requirements as per this Constitution to not allow her office to come into any disrepute. If she fails and allows that to happen, she can be recalled. She serves at the pleasure of the head of state. And if she misrepresents the head of state in any which way, as in the case of signing a bogus ascension of a PCC Act that attempts to dispossess her of her powers and authority, as well as her boss, the head of state, for that reason, she can be sacked. Why? She can be accused and or be sacked under the premise that she is attempting to or facilitating the committing of sedition. But I don't want to make that my point of contention for tonight. I just wanted to point out to you to what extent what I'm about to read is so critical that you, the Belizean people, need to pay attention and try to grasp as much of it as possible for your own sense of comfort and knowledge and understanding. So I'll go ahead and reread that little part there just now. About that, the part that I read was about 9, probably 10 words at the most. Under subsection 2, it says, this section applies to the Governor General, members of the National Assembly, members of the Belizean Advisory Council. Those are the individuals who advise the Governor General in matters of state. Members of the judiciary, and Legal Service Commission, the Security Services Commission, or the Public Service Commission. Mem- Give me a second. I touched the surface and I always have to keep in mind that I'm supposed to avoid touching the surface of this device too often unnecessarily, because sometimes what it does is it goes haywire or goes wild, and I lose the position that or the location where I'm trying to read from, and then I got to go and retrieve it. But in this case, I'm lucky enough that I touched it inadvertently, not intending to make any changes, and I'm still able to continue. So let me continue. Or the Public Service Commission, or members of the Elections and Budgets Commission, public officers of statutory corporations such as BTL, which is where the focus of my presentation for tonight will end up being, and government agencies and such other officers as may be prescribed by law enacted by the National Assembly. And that's the end of section section 121 of the Constitution of Belize. I wish to go back and reread the whole of it all over again, because to some people it might have been the first time that they probably heard reference made to that particular section, and probably hearing it being read to them for the first time. And they may not still be able to grasp its significance, its power, its authority, and the demand that it places on the heads of all or elected and non-elected officials. Okay? Some people say when the prime minister becomes prime minister, he and his cabinet can do just about whatever they want, regardless. And especially since the prime minister comes from the side of the aisle in the National Assembly, of which they have a supermajority, that much more power then allows him to do even much more. I beg to differ, of course, because on these teachable moment programs that we have been doing, we have explained why the separation of powers doctrine prevails in our democracy, or at the least, it should prevail. Okay? Because that's the system that we're living under. But it doesn't always prevail, which is the problem. We have a bunch of rascals and scofflaws who don't apparently have any fidelity or belief in the Constitution, to the point that they transgress and violate it without a second thought or any consideration for the purpose of which that Constitution exists. As a matter of fact, they are so onerous that they have gone to the extent of wanting to change or eviscerate the whole damn Constitution. That's how crazy these people are. And they pursue these objectives because there's not enough kickback. They don't suffer any consequence, physically, economically, or in any else kind of way. Because they keep giving the impression to the public that once they win the majority of the seats in the House and are then authorized to take on the governance of the country, that authority vests in them unlimited power to the point of them dismissing the very requirements of the Constitution, which is supposed to be their guidebook for how they're supposed to run the country and on whose behalf they're supposed to be running the country, rather than with their grand idea of trying to run the country on behalf of themselves, their families, and their cronies, and to hell with the rest of the people. Anyhow, I would like to present again a second reading. Of course, I'm not the only one doing first and second and maybe even third reading of the same item in one presentation. We have that being done in our National Assembly today, when in fact it's supposed to take 90 days for any laws to be read in order for it to justifiably become law, because they're supposed to have some time or enough time for other lawmakers and other interested parties or individuals to be able to make comments or recommendations. But these jackals, they go to the House and in one day they push through these things instead of 90 days. In that one day, nobody has an opportunity to rebut or bring up any kind of information that is relevant to try and stop them from acting in such onerous ways and passing out that bogus laws that are not consistent with the Constitution. I'll start the representation and rereading. The Constitution of Belize, Part 10, under miscellaneous. Section 121, subsection 1, reads as follows. The persons to whom this section 121 of the Constitution, applies shall conduct themselves in such a way as not, as in the case of A, paragraph A, not to place themselves in any position in which they have or could have a conflict of interest. B, to compromise the fair exercise of their public or official functions and duties. C, to use their office for private gain. D, to demean their office or position. E, to allow their integrity to be called into questions and or, in the case of F, which is the last one in that group, to endanger or diminish respect for or confidence in the integrity of the government. In other words, all high-flying officials of the government and those who are appointed to specific organizations, as I'm going to read right now, are charged to not fall afoul of these requirements. It is mandated of them constitutionally, not just by virtue of the job that they're supposed to do. The Constitution requires. As a matter of fact, in order for any of these individuals to be appointed to these positions, they should be vetted and being found of high character, high moral standings, ethical and professional conduct. I will specify, as is stated here under the subsection 2 of this same section, section 121, subsection 2 reads as follows. It says, this section, as regards to what we read above and what we are reading here to complete the section, this section applies to the Governor General, whom I just referred to and made mention at the highest level of the local Belize executive authority. Also to members of the National Assembly, members of the Belize Advisory Council. When it mentions members of the National Assembly, by the way, it is not just the House of Representatives. Okay? That reference is being made to both bodies, the House of Representatives and the Senate, the upper and lower body of the legislative body, okay? And we call it our National Assembly. It also applies to members of the Belize Advisory Council, who are individuals that are chosen by the Governor General or assented to by the Governor General to be her advisors. It also applies to members of the Judicial and Legal Service Commission, which includes also the Supreme Court Chief Justice and all other people below that position. The Security Service Commission, which includes a commission at large over the BDF, the Police Department, and the Coast Guard, and any other security entity. The Public Service Commission, which large over the public service employees and all the different bodies that makes up the government of Belize civil service. Now, all these extra words that I'm putting in are not in the reading itself, which is why I paused, right? Because what is in the reading, if I just read it all the way through without adding on these additional information for you, the general public, a lot of you will remain the same way as, before you have heard this presentation. Why? Because it refers to these commissions and these organizations without the expanded information that I'm giving you when I'm clarifying to you what those commissions comprise of and who are involved in those commissions. Just the name of the commission, in my estimation, would not do justice to the knowledge of the people of Belize who are not familiar with the Constitution, which is why I take on the extra privilege, I would call it, to elucidate and to clarify. As I'm saying, what we're doing here is an exercise in terms of a teachable moment. Okay. Let me proceed. There's a little bit more that I need to read to finish up that one. Spoke about the Security Service Commission, what those comprise, and then we spoke about the Public Service Commission, and then we're also going to continue the reading now by saying, as well as members of the Elections and Boundaries Commission. Now, the members of the Election and Boundaries Commission, the board is comprised of 5 individuals, 2 from the UDP, 3 from the PUP, because those are the 2 mass parties, and they are appointed to serve in that commission. And that commission is responsible to the Governor General in terms of doing certain things. That commission then lords over the Election and Boundaries Department, which is a department of government that has the specific functions of dealing with election-related issues. All that detail and explanation is not here. And we can't take it, or at least I don't take it for granted that because it's not here, that the people that are supposed to be hearing this presentation are supposed to be aware of all the details, and therefore I shouldn't be explaining. I take the privilege to explain it because I know, as I'm saying, the majority of our people in our country, even though they might hear the presentation, would not know the necessary background details for further clarity. And under the lawyers, then go to law school and study law, and a few other people in our country who deal with legal service issues, study law, and are acquainted with these issues. The masses of the public are oblivious. Anyhow, let me proceed with the presentation. I'm almost at the end of this particular section. So let me close it out. Public officers of statutory corporations, which we are going to deal with a little bit later on in this particular program, hopefully, if we have enough time left. Because that's why I'm reading these things, because I want people to know that these things are in the Constitution itself. Okay. So when I'm making reference to it and I'm maybe running off the rail in my further comments later on, people at least have heard and known that what I'm talking about exists in the Constitution, because I've taken the privilege to read it first before start verbalizing it in my general comments. Because I'm coming hot under the collar. This is a 400 program, major milestone in the undertaking. I see someone in the background. I see just spare me a second. Let me just uh, bring up. I think it's Mr. Morrison. Good night, Mr. Morrison. Mr. Morrison. Oh, uh, he's not ready yet. So I'll just, in the interest of trying to keep the program cogent, I'll I'll just continue talking until I can look back again and see his presence and just welcome him to the program. Um, Hopefully I'll be able to do that soon enough. There's just a little bit left there. So it says that public officers of statutory corporations, such as BTL, and the public officers, that we're having a little problem right now with BTL in terms of the Social Security Board members and the other appointed board members appointed by the Prime Minister, by the way, as well as the one board member that is in that board looking out for the interest of the small shareholders, private individuals. And such other officers as may be prescribed by law enacted by the National Assembly. Let me finish okay. Um, so that is the end of section 121 of the Constitution of Belize. And I would really hope that somehow, yes, okay, Mr. Morrison is back at his seat. Good night, Mr. Morrison.
Good evening, sir. Good evening. Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much for gracing us with your presence. And I'd just like to ask if you would care to self identify for the public, please.
Yeah. Good evening. Good evening, all. This is Gregory Morrison. I'm here in Los Angeles, California, and occasionally I join into the program to partake, listen, learn, and to also offer some contribution. So I thank you very much, Mr. Leonard, and please continue.
Thank you very much again, as I said, for gracing us, sir. And I don't know how much of what I was reading before you may have heard,
Yeah,
but
I did get.
I'm sure that you're familiar with this particular section in terms of just for as a matter of general knowledge.
Yes.
So I'll be reading a little bit more on that because I'm using it as a background. I'm putting it out there first for people's awareness as a background. After which I'm going to make some comments that will be relevant to this particular section as a backup. I don't want to put the information out there to the public, without them have a sense that what I'm saying may have some merits and or at least uh, the public having an opportunity, those who have not had that opportunity to own a copy of the Constitution themselves, at least having heard it being read, and for contextual purposes, at least we'll be able to recognize what is it that I'm talking about in the context of the constitutional basis. Now,
Yes, sir.
um,
Thank you.
I- I'll just read one other section here, which is section 22, which is very short. It's less than about 15 words. So, section 122 of the Constitution of Belize refers to national symbols, and it says The national symbols of Belize shall be those prescribed by the National Assembly. And I would say most Belizeans would know the majority of our national symbols. For those who don't know, you know, it would be nice for them to, read bits and pieces of the Constitution like this in this instance and be appraised, and also do additional research that will give them further clarity as to what those items are. But I'll just make a general statement like our flag, for example, what our flag consists of. Like, for example, our national animal, which would be the tapir, and our national anthem, our national hymn, our national prayer, our national coat of arms, you know, all these things they're supposed to teach in elementary, or
Primary.
probably in elementary, or maybe
Primary.
uh, yeah, primary school or whatever. And so I believe that most people are familiar with those. So let me just skip over that for a second. And then, in regards to what we had read in the first part, I'm going to continue on the section 123, subsection 1, dealing with powers of appointment and acting appointments. It says, subsection 1 reads as follows: any reference in this Constitution to power to make appointments to any public office shall be construed as including a reference to the power to make appointments or promotion and transfer to that office, and to the power to appoint a person to act in that office during any period during which it is vacant or the holder thereof is unable to perform the functions of that office. That's a general categorization in reference to the powers of appointment and uh, who may exercise those powers. In this Constitution, for example, under subsection 2 of this section 123, it says, in this Constitution, unless the context otherwise requires, a reference to the holder of an office by the term designating his office shall be construed as including a reference to any person who is, for the time being, lawfully appointed or acting in or performing the function of that office. That is to say, the people that are being referred to in this particular section of the Constitution, who have the privilege or the opportunity to exercise any authority in government, have to be duly appointed or are sanctioned to operate in those capacities. And those individuals then have the right to be able to exercise the powers vested in them, to appoint other people who are subordinate to them. Remember when I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the presentation that the executive authority is vested in His Majesty the King, or the head of state, and transfer locally to the Governor General, who acts as an emissary of the head of state and who can uh, grant the exercise of some of those executive authorities under her seal to subordinate officers. So now, some of those subordinate officers can also grant, by extension, some of those powers vested in them by the head of state, for them to be able to run the various governmental offices or departments, the day-to-day functioning of the government of Belize. Their chief executive officers, their commissioners, their, their heads of department, CEOs. There are, and then below them there are others who can be, because for example, a supervisor, when you go for a service at the government office and you interact with the lower level individuals in any particular department, if they don't know how to do certain things, or if they need further authority, they can go to their supervisor or their manager of department, who then can exercise the powers at a higher level. But oh shucks. Oh man, okay, yeah, I got it back. So that being said, uh, I would like to. I'm not going to read much more of this for right now. I'm just going to leave it at that. Uh, Subsection 2, because I want to get back to the first part of the presentation of subsection 121. And currently we have this issue with BTL in the country, and it appears that under section 121, there are some individuals who are not fulfilling their obligations and who are falling afoul of this particular section of the Constitution. And for example, I'll just be specific. We have a chairman of the board in public in a, I think it was what they call it, a press conference or something of that nature, stipulated to the general public that BTL is a private company. That is to say, in his word, they don't need to report to the public or tell the public nothing, or they could just go ahead and do what they want in closed doors as if they were a real private company. Some people call BTL a private public company or public private company, you know, whichever the case may be. The fact remains that in a regular private company, the shareholders vote for their board members and instruct those board members as to how to vote those shares on behalf of the shareholders. So the board member is ultimately responsible and accountable to the shareholders. They look after their interests in that boardroom. As in the case of BTL, which is majority owned publicly, by the way, 51% by the government and 30 something percent by Social Security, which amounts to about 84% approximately of the shareholdings and the powers and the authorities, which is also majority of the shares. And in any boardroom, the majority of the shares command the day. So I don't understand how we have our appointed board member and the head of the board, chairman of the board, stipulating to us in the public that there should be no concern of us what the hell they are doing or how they carry on their business, when their fiduciary responsibility is to us. And in that boardroom, they operate under what you call, for example, a non-disclosure agreement. That is that whatever they discuss or whatever goes on in that room, nobody outside of that room is supposed to be told or informed about what transpires, which is bogus. How can you operate, for example, and I'm going to say this too, it is my presumption that that was one of the reasons why the board member of the BTL that came from the Social Security Board as the head of the Social Security, the, the chairman of the Social Security Board, previously Ms. Nisbet, had walked out of that meeting preemptively because they were trying to hijack the process and have a meeting without having given the information and allowing the people in that board. They were trying to get them to rubber stamp a quick and hurry-come agreement without any proper due diligence. And she needed the information on behalf of her Social Security board. They are major player and major funders, shareholders of BTL. So they should not have been denied the right and the opportunity to see the documents, if there were any documents available for them to be able to realize whether or not their investment was adequately being taken care of or given considerations. But what ended up happening is that she she decided to resign because why? Somehow or another, she just didn't resign willy nilly. She resigned under duress, under pressure. Powers from above her forced her hands to either do what she was expected to do or required to do or asked to do, or she will be fired. Or, for all intents and purposes, she should resign if she can't follow what is expected of her. She chose the issue of resigning. And had she not done that, we would not have probably had the privilege to be talking about this matter the way we are currently, because it would have been more than anything else a done deal. Because once that board makes a decision, whether it's carried out fully, where we try to stop it or abort it or whatever, once that board makes a decision, that decision carries legally. So if that board had gone ahead and said, okay, we are going to go ahead and buy, we agree as a board to go ahead and buy Smart and the other companies, then for all intents and purposes, the record of that meeting could have been used in a court case by Mr. Ashcroft if that matter did not go through all the way to its fulfillment. Why? Because they made the proposal, it was accepted, and the board agreed to it, and therefore it's a legal, it's not a consummated contract or agreement, right? But the powers have spoken, and he would have threatened to take us to court to get his money. So he was going to get his money one way or another, and the idea that that board didn't get to finally make that decision then, and has been put in a position where they are now having to go and do what was supposed to have been done in the first place. For all you know, as far as I'm understanding the facts, the Prime Minister is still interested in having this matter consummated, which is why he says, stop the pressures that is coming down on them, stop talking about this issue, let a little time pass by, and the little time will come like a little breeze and it will blow over. And while people are while something else is taking up the time, the decision will be made and it will be carried through. Hopefully, it wouldn't, though. You, Mr. Morrison, for any comments that you'd like to make in regards to your own personal perceptions or thoughts in regards to these matters. You're not restricted to my perceptions. You're entitled to your own perceptions, as
I,
they say on the
I,
show.
I, I,
All
I listen to them and I learn from them, but I carry my own load, Mr. Brackett, in terms of understanding what's going on. Um, it is quite clear to me that the chairman particularly was heavy-handedly trying to run the day. He even in that press conference, he didn't involve much participation from the other board members that sat in that meeting with him. So I I was a little concerned about that in the first instance. I think the CEO was there and he spoke very little, only when he was called upon by the chairman to make some brief remarks and comments of trying to um, validate what the chairman was saying. he offered the involvement of the CEO. It occurs to me that this would have been a done deal if Ms. Nisbet had, from the Social Security Board, did not um, make the decision to vacate her position and to dissent on the agreement of moving forward. It seemed to me that the intent was to move ahead and get this to be a done deal. And unfortunately, this would have benefited the full deal would have benefited the chairman and his brother, would have this benefited the prime minister and his brother and the rest of his family, and the people of Belize would have,
Ashcroft.
and Ashcroft, of course,
Yes,
and
sir.
the people of Belize would have been on the hook for whatever this phallus
And
was.
no wiser, no wiser.
And so the fact that um, the activism, the agitation, and all that help to carry the day so that we can have this conversation today. You know, we are always um, concerned that what we don't seem to have is virtuous people dealing with our national business. We don't seem to have people of goodwill, and I may question good character
Hmm.
when it comes to dealing with national affairs. It is always something in it for them. If the country could benefit a little bit from it, but as long as they're getting the biggest share of it, then the deal goes through. If they're not getting any benefit from it, it's a done dead deal. And so we have to be very mindful of this type of position that the country and the resources of the country is constantly being placed in and at. It seems like we need to, but it seems that we need to be on that extra alert always. And it has come to the point where it seems like in the dealing with the prime minister and his family, we have to be on that extra alert because we have seen this type of deal gone down so many times. We have seen it with the deal that they did for the security arrangement at the airports. We have seen it being done again with the arrangement that was made for the hospital, the land that was acquired in Bavapan for the new hospital.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
was that excessive amount of money was paid. And again, this was just up to the election. We don't know if that was some electioneering money that was going on, but definitely we see so much issues. And then they had the ball face to tell us it's not going to affect anything, but yet that the money was going to be easily gotten and it wasn't going to change anything. But yet we can't seem to have money to buy some of the basic um, pharmaceutical and equipment and necessities to operate the hospital as it's currently um, arranged. So all these decisions and all these actions that take away resources from the country and ends up in the pocket of private people, individuals, family, friends, nepotism, in one way or the other come back and harm the country and the people of the country. And that is where we need to start recognizing that as these things happen, you see, my thought is that Sometimes we say, oh, a traffic accident. It, uh, we don't realize that sometimes it is caused because of neglect, because of
Mm-hmm.
hustle that was done in building the highway,
Mm-hmm.
and all those type of things. And we don't, and people die from these things, but they die, and they don't die as martyr of the cause for being agitators. They just die a clumsy, lousy way of passing. And we as Belizeans, most of the time, we just roll our eyes and say, rest in peace. We need to start making it a cause to, to stand up and let every person that dies in the cause of this be in the cause of activism, because their death and their loss and the pain that these families are suffering don't don't get the reward they need, because it doesn't come back to realize that it is government misappropriation, government corruption, government misuse, government abuse that ultimately result in the loss of these lives.
I would
And
say
this,
I would say government malmanagement, sir.
yes, that too, that too. And these are caused in very many varying ways how Belizeans are losing their lives. I mentioned traffic accident, but sometimes it is um, not having the resources at the hospital that causes death. Sometimes it is gang activity, and we can't just innocently put these activities aside and not recognize the root cause in many instances
Mm-hmm.
of why these um, conditions exist in the society that fuel the gang violence, the gang rivalry, and many times it is because they're involved in drugs and other activities, illegal activities. But some of the cause for that may be the lack of opportunity and
Mm-hmm.
resources that could have been, if the resource we had from the government was properly expended to address the concerns of the society and the community and our children. And
Uh,
so,
oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morrison, for such a lucid and comprehensive observation and analysis and conclusion, sir. I would like to ask for you to allow me to read what the Constitution says exactly about what you just spoke to just now. Okay? And I'm going to read it from the preamble of the Constitution of Belize, uh, paragraph B. Whereas the people of Belize, as in paragraph B, respect the principles of social justice and therefore believe that the operations of the economic system must result in the material resources of the community being so distributed as to subserve the common good, that there should be adequate means of livelihood, as you specified just now, Mr. Morrison, for all, that labor should not be exploited or forced by economic necessity to operate in a humane condition, but that there should be opportunity for advancement on the basis of recognition of merit, ability, and integrity, that equal protection should be given to children, regardless of their social status, and that a just system should be ensured to provide for education and health on the basis of equality. And that's what the Constitution says. Different words, but the same sentiments in terms of what you was expressing just now. So I yield back to you again for your
Thank you, thank you. Yeah,
thought.
you're so right, Mr. Brack. What that is talking about is about the well-being of the society. It is part of our constitutional right, and so the action that we need to take is to bring about whatever resistance is necessary so that the powers in Belmopan and across the country of Belize will recognize that the people rights are being violated and that they will have no more of it. And the funny thing is, for the most part, we as Belizeans, we become lackadaisical when it is our party. Very few people will stand up and criticize um, the actions when it is seems to them that it is their party that's invoking the harm. We need to get
Mhm.
away from that. We need to become Belizeans before we become a UDP or a PUP or any type of political party favoritism. Because what happens is that it is our family, it is our children, it is our country that is being harmed. It is taking away from the grace and dignity of our lives, and that is part of what's denying us the the tranquility of life that we once enjoyed in Belize. It seems today that we cannot walk the streets, we cannot go out anywhere, we cannot leave our doors open. We have to be sitting behind tall fences, and even then you're not safe.
Because of the
And
pressures that the society is under, because of malmanagement of the government. Nobody's asking for miracles to be done. All we are asking is for a little bit better than what is being done right now. You know, and can I steal a few more seconds from you again? I'll come back to you. I just want to read something else here again that speaks to the very words coming out of your mouth. I want people to understand that it's not just from your mouth and your mind and your heart. It's enshrined in our constitution, so we're entitled to it. So I'll just take this a few seconds and read this one so quickly.
okay,
Uh, the preamble of the Constitution of Belize, paragraph C. We Belizeans believe that the will of the people shall form the basis of government in a democratic society in which the government is freely elected by universal adult suffrage and in which all persons may, to the extent of their capacity, play some part in the institutions of national life and thus develop and maintain due respect for lawful constituted authority. But they want to exercise their authority unlawfully, illegally, and unconstitutionally. And they're setting the pace for the people to act in the same manner. So the breakdown comes from above and it follows through, throughout the government departments. Like for example, right now with the what we're seeing happening at the customs, those things never used to happen at that level, to the point where the custom employees them are embezzling more money from the government coffers, or money that should be going to the government coffers. They are getting more than twice as much as what goes to the government coffers. That's intolerable. And then the government have to come to the general population afterwards and turn around and squeeze us for the extra money to meet the wage bill and other government services. Why do we have an FIU or a financial intelligence unit? They are being paid. Are they not supposed to have what you call um, forensic auditors to be able to audit some of these individuals that work in these departments that are living large on the hog? Are they not capable of checking on the ministers and or just about anybody? Because if you walk right now into Belize off of an airport, off on an airplane, and you got more than the prescribed amount of money that you're legally able to bring in without having declared it, and you bring in more, you're subject to fines and penalties and destitution of your assets. If you bring $20,000, for example, and you don't declare it, they could take your $20,000. So if they can do that, why can't they follow through and investigate other people who are actually living above their paycheck or pay grade? They have, I'm sure that they have forensic auditors in the FIU. And if they don't, they can hire them because we have a lot of Belizean accountants who are capable of backtracking and finding out. In fact, they can have the FIU go to the customs department and go through some of these documentations there. And they can figure out, just like how Jules and other people figure out, you know, what's going on and to what degree or extent. Do their job. I yield back, sir.
Well, and to point out, I think for the most part, Belize being such a small society, such family interconnection, such it makes it so susceptible to corruption and to people turning their eyes the other way when things are happening, and that's unfortunate. I think we need to figure out ways within our governance. I believe that all the laws are there to actually protect and stop corruption.
Mm-hmm.
The issue have continuously been enforcement, the motivation to enforce these laws, um, and it has made our entire system corruptible. This includes our courts. We have seen instances of it. We have found that we can't get the level of convictions because files goes missing, witnesses don't turn up,
Mm-hmm.
uh, police officers forget the the history of the what happens,
Or they
and
change.
yeah, well, all those. That's why I said when they forget it, they change it. They change the story. All these are things that have dissuaded the true exercise of justice in our country, and it has broken down the legal system, and it is trending and breaking down the democratic structure of our system because of this level of seen corruption that's going on. We can only hope that we start recognizing the slide we're on, and that we start approaching our national responsibility as citizens, whether we are individual citizens or whether we have a responsibility within the society of governance, either in political office, religious office, or in the business sector, that we start recognizing that what we are doing to the individually and collectively to our manner of governance is destroying the entire fabric and, as I said, the well-being of the society. So with that, I yield back to you,
Uh,
Mr.
Thank you very much, sir. I would like to read paragraph D of the same preamble. It says, "We the Belizeans recognize that men and institutions remain free only when the freedom is founded upon respect for moral and spiritual values and upon the rule of law, which is exactly the opposite of what's going on in the custom department. For example, I made reference just now to problems that we're having in the custom department as regards to vehicles, but it's more than just vehicles. I can tell you that there are many merchants in the country who get these big container shipped to them, and they're not paying their full freight. Not only just the freight, they're not paying their full amount of custom duties or taxes or
Tariff.
stamp duties
Yeah.
and other services. And in addition to that, a lot of other goods too is being uncustomed. And the end result is that if you take all the government departments where money is, falling through the cracks, what can't our government do if they can get another 100 or $200 million a year? Exactly as you pointed out earlier, they can buy more gauze, they can buy cotton swabs, they can buy more Tylenol, they can buy other things that is essential to the well-being of the people. But the government has to do its job and stop being an enabler. Because at the end of the day, it comes right down to the fact that customs and all those money generating entities where money is being embezzled from comes under the Prime Minister's portfolio of Minister of Finance. The other day he said he was going to come up with $800,000 to help, the people on the streets and the people, the indigent and things like those. Can you imagine, instead of just $800,000, that the man could have come up with a couple $1 million, or maybe on $10 million, on 15 or $20 million? You know how far that could go? Well, let's say he could end up $200 million. You know what $200 million could do for students right now in school? Or for some people that have children and they don't have a job, or they don't have, they don't have a means to subsist. And those kids have to be going to school hungry in the morning, or they don't have clothes, they don't have pencils. Then the teachers are getting pressured by the government, so the teachers can't do like they used to do before, which is they see a struggling student in their class and they try to help out. They try to buy or give the kids what they think they can afford to give them. The Constitution says that people will live better together, you will do better, and the society will have better morals and be more lawful. But that can't happen when you have these guys hustling money, millions of dollars, to the Northern Caucus for them to run their political campaign. That's where that $7 million went the other day. That property was bought for less than $1 million, 600 or something $1,000, and they turn around and buy it back from the same people where they sell it to. It's not like the property had changed hands so many times, and they had developed the property, and they had planned great developments on the property, because the property wasn't a viable property in the first place. So they probably gave that person who paid $600,000 for it, they probably gave him twice as much, or maybe 2 times or 3 times. They said they gave him $2 million, Mr. Morrison. $5 million is a large sum of money, because that's not the only money that they get for campaigning. They get money from a lot of different sources, including private entities. That's why they give these people those big tax breaks, so that later on, when election times come around, they could go and collect a little something from these people. The people that pay, they give them probably $1 million, you know. But over the year, the 5 year time, over the 1 year or 5 year time, those people are making multiple millions of dollars. They can
Well,
afford to
we
double their stores.
yeah, we saw that with the contracts that was awarded for the security services at the airport. We
And the
we,
prime minister
we
says he didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, We saw that with the contract that was awarded for the painting of the Belize City Council building. We constantly see the misuse and abuse and the mishandling of the national resources.
And then they say they
And
don't have the money.
and one of the problem we have is that we don't have the proper accounts and we don't have the fiscal auditing of the national budget in the timely manner.
They don't want it happening. They don't provide for it.
So those are things that anyone that says they want to fix our government, to make our government work, needs to first set structures to ensure that these um, sort of issues are addressed upfront. And once we have the situation right now where I think four members of the cabinet have come out in some level of opposition or requiring further disclosure and transparency on the dealings and what the profit or valuation of smart should be, and we're hoping that they will stick to it because it is necessary, and the people of Belize are not going to deal with them lightly if they do not address these issues and make sure that the the purchase, if it occurs, is on the level that we are paying a fair price, and that the people and stockholders, whether in the government, with the shares, or the shares that are owned by BPL, that particularly the and in I mean Social Security Board, the shares that are owned by Social Security Board, that particularly Social Security Board is not harmed by this transaction if it goes down. Those are some of the concerns that I have on that particular um, arrangement. So I'm hoping that we start looking at how we could make our government more accountable to the people. You talked earlier about the how some of the boards are made up, like the election and boundaries and such. We need to make sure that there is sufficient independency independence of these people that are appointed to these boards, that they can act in the interest and to carry out the responsibility they are charged with in a proper manner. You went through an extraordinary reading of the Constitution of how these statutory boards are to be configured, and how they are accountable to the people, and how they gain their executive um, prowessness. And so from that we need to make sure that they're in fact acting in a manner that will address the concerns and be responsive to the concerns of the citizens and of the nation. We need to start looking beyond the immediate and the political um, advantage of the moment, and look out for the national interest in these type of appointments, and how they judiciously carry out their responsibility to the country and the people.
Thank you very much, sir, for such a lucid comment as well. I would like to say, in addition to what you just verbalized, that it would be nice for us Belizeans and Belize to have that kind of people involved in our affairs and take us to the next level, because that's what it's going to take. People of good conscience and goodwill. I can recall the present Prime Minister in a former lifetime, while as the opposition, well, let me go back a little further than that. Long time ago, when he was Deputy Prime Minister to Mr. Musa, I recall at one point, no, it happened. Yeah, there was the G7 to whom we had provided some information for them to know, just like what's happening right now, something was wrong and stink and these guys got together in cabinet and put pressure on Mr. Musa. No, they didn't want their government to get overthrown. That was not their objective. All they were trying to do was pressure the man into being less onerous. Okay? And so that's how come we end up with the G7. Some people inside our cabinet stood up on behalf of the general public, which is their job, by the way. That's what they're supposed to be doing there in cabinet, not always conspiring against the best interests of the country because they're colleagues. Just like these other guys here recently now, they're doing the very same thing that Mr. Britannia and other colleagues did so many decades ago, okay, to save us from a catastrophe back then. Now his colleagues are doing that to him. I remember he hollered at Mr. Musa and Mr. Fonseca, Ralph, telling them, bring back some of the money we want to carry. Well, that's what it took, right? Who is going to holler at him now and tell him, don't take the money because we don't want to have to holler at you to tell you bring back some? Because that's what he's trying to do right now. Collect his retirement up front ahead of time. I mean, that should be obvious to almost anybody who's looking at what's going on right now. And he's maneuvering the process. He's calling these board members and telling them what to do and not to do. And then he's turning around and telling the public, well, he's not involved. Talk to my brother. His brother has no control over BTL and the BTL board members. Who does he think he's talking to? But anyhow, are you back for your last comment for the evening, Mr. Morrison?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say that.
You could take about 3-4 minutes, sir, if you
Okay.
need that much.
Yeah. I just want to say that you made a good point. What we need are people of goodwill. You know, that is the key of what we need to sort of bring this country back. We need people that are virtuous, that are considerate, decent. They want to serve the people. The concern is about the interests of the country before they put the interests of their friends, their family, themselves. It is the consideration of what's best for the nation of Belize, for the people, the vast majority of the people of Belize. And if we could get a few such good people, men and women from both parties, to start holding themselves accountable to the true calling of political involvement and national development, then we will start getting a chance to realize the dream of the jewel, to realize the potential that we have. There's no doubt in my mind that when the poem and the national anthem speaks of wealth untold, that it's in fact there.
Mm-hmm.
It is in fact there. And there's enough resources even without any additional discovery. We have the land, natural arable land. We have relatively good weather that we can farm and we can develop ourselves. And we keep getting loans and these type of programs that put us farther in debt. And when we get the money, we don't use it properly. We misuse it. We we overspend, we provide poor quality product that deteriorates in short period of time and doesn't serve the intended purpose. So with just what we have, we can make sufficient resources that we don't see the level of poverty and hardship that triggers crime and other dysfunctional um, actions in the society if we were to use the resources we have properly. So I'm hoping that somewhere within the UDP, the PUP, or whoever else is out there, that we'll start finding people that can start standing up for the welfare of the country. There's one constitutional amendment I remember they enacted that was very discouraging to democracy, and that was the constitutional amendment. I don't remember if it's nine or seven that
Oh,
restricted the crossing of floor by other members by opposition so that they cannot um, stand or support a bill that was forwarded by the government or against their party.
that was an anti-democratic process that
Yes.
they did there,
Yes.
sir, while
Yeah.
claiming that they were doing something in the interest of democracy. It's
Well,
just
yeah, and we
crazy.
know we know why they did that. I know exactly why they did that. But unfortunately, too, just this week on the 11th, Barbados had an election where Mia Mottley won the
Hmm.
national election for the third
Hmm.
time, and for the third time, she won, winning all 30 seats of the Barbadian National Assembly, the Parliament.
Hmm.
But she proposed to, even with a 30 majority and no opposition, the Governor General will have to find take one of her party member and appoint them as a opposition leader to ensure that the parliament has at least an opposition voice, and
Like in
that
the
the
case of
people,
Mr. Golson, huh?
yeah, and that the people that voted for the opposition has some sort of representation. But she proposes to do that same bill of prohibiting
The crossing of the
members
floor.
from crossing, and I cannot, in the hell of me, understand why she would do that. I've had great deal of respect for her, and that is one question I would like somebody to ask her. Why do you think it is necessary, even under these dire situations, when there's no real opposition right now, that the first bill you're going to introduce in the next National Assembly was a bill that would prohibit the crossing of the floor by one of the members of her government. So
Stifling of
a
democracy.
lot of things are going on that seems anti-democratic in many ways,
Mm.
and it took hold in Belize a very long time ago,
Mm.
and I am just quite alarmed to see what I thought was a progressive leader in Barbados to be jumping on that bandwagon of adapting such a similar disgraceful and tasteless um, constitutional amendment as we have in Belize. So I'll yield back to you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, for bringing up that point too, because it's very salient and very critical and important that we as Belizeans take note of those things because it, it can happen to us in more ways than one. That is that our democracy can be corrupted, and is, as a matter of fact, I wouldn't say can be, is being currently corrupted. It's being corrupted and corrupted. Okay, and it's not going to serve us well into the future because we're going to have to deal with the outcome from those corruption, and the end result is that you know people are not going to spend the time necessary to move us forward instead of having to fight over current and past grievances. And that's unfortunate because As small a country as Belize is, we need to move forward. And on that point, I would just like to say for tonight, thank you again, Mr. Morrison, for gracing us with your presence and your knowledge and everything that you bring to the table and what you offer to the public. I know they are very happy with your presentation, and I appreciate it very much. As part of our 400 program on this Belizean Affairs platform. All we are doing here is helping or contributing a little bit to try and make a difference in the progress forward moving of our country. And you are to be commended for putting in your 2 cents, even though you're not a get paid. And I would like to say on
But
behalf of
you told
the
me there was a check coming, sir.
oh no, I don't remember. Oh man, now I gotta go check the checkbook then.
Uh,
Yeah,
no, thank
anyhow,
you. We do this as a means of love for our country and for our people. That's the impetus of what causes us to be here. And you guys, you and the rest of the team that has now sat upon 400 episodes that has been on a forward movement in trying to educate, to transform, and to make the people of Belize more enlightened, more involved in their democracy, and more in touch with the affairs of their government in the everyday goings on.
thank you very much for the kind words, sir. And I'd just like to say for those who will be listening to us after the show is finished, we do appreciate your time, valuable time spent in interacting with these shows, and we hope that you derive some positive public benefit from interacting therewith. And we look forward to presenting another program, our 401st program, next Monday. Thank you very much and good night, Belizeans at home and abroad. This was the 400 program of Belizean Affairs. My name was Leonard Brackett as your chairman and host, and we had our co-host for tonight was Mr. Gregory Morrison, the one
Thank
and
you, sir.
only. Thank you very much and good night and goodbye, Belizeans. God
Thank
bless.
you.